Morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's edition of the MPC Markets Morning Call, 19th of August 2025. Apologies for being a little bit tardy this morning, but just wanted to get some initial impressions on that CSL and BHP earnings reports for you this morning. So in terms of overnight, equities are mixed. Investors were digesting Ukraine and Zelensky meetings and Putin meetings, etc. But then also looking ahead to Jackson Hole on the weekend. Hence our bull and bear sitting here at Jackson Hole looking out. But something new here for you as well. Put in some technical, basically a summary of technical signals for the market here as well. You can see the technicals on an hourly basis, a daily and a weekly, and that's just a culmination of both of about probably 12 or 13 odd indicators, all pulled together into one summarised technical indicator. So you'll have that most every morning now moving forward, and obviously you can see as it stands at the moment. On the hourly, the Dow, the S&P, the Nasdaq, a little bit, a little bit tired, but still very strong on the technical basis on the dailies and the weeklies. You'll tend to see things turn at the hourly level first, and then potentially the daily afterwards when you're looking for turning points. But not much really in equities overall in the market overnight. It was very, very mixed. And it was just more about Trump, Ukraine, etc. Talking about Zelensky, saying he can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or he can continue to fight. There's basically saying no getting back the Obama given Crimea and no going into NATO by Ukraine. So essentially that stance is pretty clear. Market's just awaiting what Jerome Powell's basically going to say. That symposium doesn't start till Friday, so we'll be definitely closed. We're seeing the Fed watch now at an 83% chance of a cut as opposed to a 90, I think it was high 90s last week because the producer price inflation figures ruled out the prospect of any larger reductions and maybe put a little bit of doubt in people's minds overall. As you can see here, just look, it's pretty blur. It's pretty mixed. Nothing much to say realistically. We'll get an insight into the consumer because of we've got Walmart and Home Depot and all those guys and TJX, Lowe's, Target, so all reporting around this week. We had Palo Alto last night, one of our recent global alpha recommendations, reported very well, up 5 to 6% in the aftermarket. The lads are certainly on fire there in that global alpha. The hit rate is doing very well. Tesla shares were boosted by reports of 40% discounts on leased vehicles in the UK, and then Novo Nordisk saw some gains as well after its obesity drug Wegovy received accelerated FDA approval for treating liver disease. So yeah, we've got Baidu, Alibaba this week as well. We've got Workday. So not really, I think it's going to be very quiet for the rest of this week. Again, BHP and CSL were this morning. This is going to be a pretty big day. And look, we've got an initial summary here. So for CSL, revenue was a miss, NPAT was a beat. EPS was a slight miss or in line, really. Dividend was in line, and then the gross margins were a beat by 10 basis points. So, overall, relatively positive. So it was interesting yesterday to see BlueScope. Everything that we saw was positive against analyst expectations. And then the analyst expectations, unfortunately, were obviously not updated to the general market. They keep things close to their chest and keep it to themselves. But Yeah, we noticed that quite a few UBS and Ords particularly hadn't published their their latest updated expectations, and based on their old expectations they beat, but on the recent ones they did not. So it was off a couple of percent, but it was still fairly decent realistically. BHP result looks relatively positive. So revenue was met, a slight beat in underlying EBITDA. It's earnings before income tax, depreciation and amortization. Underlying attributable profit was met. EPS was a very slight miss. We're talking, by 0.8 of a cent, and that could be currency realistically. Dividend per share was the consensus was $1, and we got 1.10 fully franked. So the payout ratio above consensus, so they've increased their dividend payout ratio, which is what's lifted that. I would say we're going to see a positive reaction to that. Net debt was a slight beat. And then, I haven't gone into any major detail on this. I just try to get the summary tables together, because otherwise we would be getting the morning call out by about lunchtime. Others that are that are reporting today, we've got Woodside as well. Haven't really seen too much on that. I don't think it has come out. It hasn't really. It's only come out in the last sort of five or 10 minutes. But yeah, I think overall, we're just having a look here. The results underscore balancing near-term volatility with strategic LNG growth initiatives. While there was cost improvements, dividend stability may support sentiment. Consensus remains cautious, and execution risk at Scarborough, Louisiana LNG. Mixed financial year EPS forecasts. They're saying the investor conference should give a little bit more clarity, but obviously we're not necessarily a holder there, and I think they're fairly complicated results overall. So that's just the immediate email that we get here, produced by our AI system. So yeah, I think all focus will be on these earnings results today. And you got your three titans of sectors: the healthcare, the resources sector, and the energy sector, overall all getting earnings results. So I would imagine we're just going to be very singly focused on earnings. There is an economic roundtable that begins today with Prime Minister Albanese, Treasurer Chalmers, and Michelle Bullock set to speak. And we will, whilst that'll be watched, there's only one out of those three people that ever tells the truth, and she gets persecuted in the media for it. That's Michelle Bullock. So I would imagine that not a huge amount will necessarily come out of that. We don't have much in terms of economic numbers until FOMC minutes, which will be Thursday morning, and some manufacturing numbers later in the week. But again, not big on the economic calendar for this week. One we're looking out for moving forward is Goodman's. Looking like a potential buy into earnings there, just with the REITs so far reporting fairly decent results, and Goodman's is very clearly best in class in terms of REITs, and we are doing a powering AI, or the hyperscalers of AI and data center investment strategy via structured products at the moment. Very bullish on Goodman's. It's a high conviction long term pick for us, and we potentially looking to add to it leading into earnings on Thursday. So just in terms of commodities, the US dollar was up 0.3, so that sort of dragged down gold and copper and platinum. Silver still plugging away. Still think there'll be a fairly significant breakout in that sometime in the next 12 months. Historical gold to silver ratio, if you average out where the gold silver ratio sits over the last 50 years, Silver should be around about the $65 mark, and we sit at $38. So, and it is not unfamiliar with a move where it doubles or even more so. It has had a couple of absolutely spectacular bull runs in history. But iron ore taking a bit of a breather as well. Crude sort of jumped up a little bit. Coal jumped up a little. Lithium still fairly positive. The lithium stocks are pretty positive yesterday. So yeah, overall, I think a fairly stock-specific day and relatively quiet, as I've been saying, into the week's end. So enjoy your day. If you're in Sydney, stay dry, and we will chat again tomorrow. General advice warning. The content presented in this presentation is intended for informational purposes only and provides general advice only. It does not take into account your personal objectives, financial situation, or specific needs. This information should not be the sole resource when making investment decisions. We strongly recommend you seek the advice of a financial professional.